Hello and welcome back on BMI Bicara Minggu Ini, and in this episode I will be introducing something new on this program. After the Malaysian Women in Journalism series and weekly quick takes, this is the first episode of BMI Sukan and Sports series, and I'm your host Norman Goh. So what future holds for basketball in Malaysia? So I understand that basketball is not in the top tier of sports in Malaysia, but the game itself is a big industry in countries like the United States, such as NBA, European League, Japan, China, and in Southeast Asia, it is the biggest sport in the Philippines. So I'm delighted to go to my gurus in Malaysian and regional basketball. So let's welcome Jordan Yap, senior sports journalist from China Press, and Mislan El-azzam, our talented sports commentator. Welcome to Bicara Minggu Ini, Sukan and Sports. So we have both Jordan and Mislan here. So can I have Jordan a little bit of short introduction about yourself and what do you do?
Hello. Thanks for having me, Norman. I'm Jordan. I work for China Press. I have been covering Malaysia basketball since 2000.
How about you, Mislan?
Hi. My name is Mislan El-azzam. So I started off as a basketball blogger, the first BM, Malay and English basketball blog here in Malaysia. And then I shifted, now I'm doing basketball TV analyst, commentary for RTM and also Astro Arena.
Yeah, and you can hear, basically Mislan just rushed here from his studio recording in RTM at Angkasa Puri, recording, I think it was the Chinese Basketball League. Yeah. So we will, I have a lot of questions, and before this we talked a lot about what's going on and stuff like that, and finally we get to play basketball next week, right?
Yes, correct. Finally, I've been dying to play some pickup games. I think I gained more weight now during the MCO.
So, the impact of COVID-19. So I'll go to you, Mislan, first. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic in the sports industry, generally, not just basketball, but it has affected a lot on the contact sports.
Yeah.
So how this pandemic has changed the whole direction of the industry, particularly in basketball?
I think the COVID-19 pandemic hit right in the middle of most basketball season leagues. It's not just you mentioned earlier. I was doing the voiceover for CBA, Chinese Basketball Association, and also here in our country also the ABL, ASEAN Basketball League. We're in the middle of the seasons, and also I was doing work for Astro Arena for that. So, and also the NBA. So for us here in Malaysia, I think specifically for basketball, we don't have any games to be broadcast and no tournaments to cover, to talk about for now.
What do you think, Jordan? What do you think about in terms of Malaysian basketball itself? How does it affect it? You love to play basketball. You can't play basketball for 4 months.
Personally, the worst experience. Like every day I have to sit home and work. I cannot go anywhere. I cannot play. I go out and play. I'm so desperately to play some basketball. And also I love to go out on the field to cover the basketball game. Especially because before they announced the MCO, I just covered the Dragons home games. Yeah. And then right after the home games, not long after the home games, they announced the MCO.
I remember, throughout the MCO itself, ABL was coming up with highlights, and that was it. There was just the highlights at that time, and now. It has halted all sporting events. But when it comes to basketball development in Malaysia, I'll go to you first, Jordan. So on that part, how does it affect the basketball in Malaysia?
Well, in Malaysia, the development of basketball has been very slow. So I think it's a good chance for those the stakeholders and people involved in basketball, during this period. They take a step back and sit down and think what's the plan, what's the direction, a new direction for the future of the Malaysian basketball.
And I remember last year, MABA, the Malaysian Basketball Association, was hit with a huge controversy. That is not about basketball itself, but it was an unfortunate event. But we also saw we will be expecting some changes in the lineup. You know, Datuk Loa Chun Han was is currently the president of MABA. He loves to play basketball himself, and what we are seeing is that there will be changes in leadership.
Yep.
But what has happened over the past 5 years? For example, we have KL 2017 SEA Games, and Datuk Loa has talked about a lot of the development plans. What went wrong? Maybe not what went wrong. You said you were saying it's slow, right? What were the challenges that came? I think Jordan has been very he's very pedas. He's very spicy when it comes to his writing. You can read a lot of Jordan's write-up, mostly from China Press, but it's written in Chinese, so I don't really read Chinese, so I have to sit down and ask him.
No, because you see, it's the problem is not just now, because it's many years that didn't solve it. So it's like kind of like accumulate over the years. Now we see the effect.
And to you, Mislan, so when it comes to these accumulated problems, and it's like running a country, you got a lot of bad debts, right? Yeah. So the sikit-sikit lama-lama jadi bukit. It's like small problems. It cropped up even more problems. So everyone is like what are some of the problems that you see when organizing and even training, finding out new talents in Malaysia? And both of you played basketball. What are the challenges that you see as well? I mean, again, in Malaysia, basketball is seen as very Chinese-centric, and you see a lot more players from the Chinese community, and you yourself, as from the Malay community and non-Chinese community, what are the challenges that you see?
I think Jordan has covered the sports for 20 years, right? He said it himself before. Well, for me, I only about, I think, around 13 years, I started to cover Malaysia basketball. And I remember, I think we had this interview between you and me, Jordan. You asked me about the issues, the problems and everything, maybe 10 years ago. And we still talk about the same thing over and over again, the developments, the grassroots program. Those are the things that the slow part of Malaysia basketball development. But for me, I would prefer to look at the positive things. So if you ask me, for the past 5 years, I don't know whether you guys notice or not, but definitely I am noticed. We have more live broadcasts on our national TV, whether it's on RTM or Astro. So I think that's the positive part. If I can think of for the past 5 years, I know that if you're looking at the problem, at the issue, Jordan already said it has been accumulated. He has been covering the sport for the past 20 years. And when I started to cover 13 years ago, it's the same thing. I mean, the problems, the issue hasn't been either resolved, tackled. It's just been talk about it. I mean, and I agree during the MCO, right? What happened when you don't have any basketball tournaments? Everyone is sitting at home. So it gives people, especially the stakeholders, like Jordan said, either the MABA people or the state association people, and also those the fans and the media to talk about it, to seek back and talk about it. But I don't know, man. I mean, we had a session, Jordan, you and me, we had a session previously, and I remember I sounds like a broken record, and also the suggestion, like it's a Chinese-centric sports in Malaysia, but it doesn't have to be that way. Actually, it doesn't have to be that way, and because we are here in Malaysia, we are unique because of our race. I don't think that as a hurdle. I think we should take that as something good, to be used, and not as an excuse for any slow progress or hinder or whatever. But I just had an interview actually with Danny Kokase, the president of PBASI, actually the Indonesia Basketball Association. I asked him, because he said that what I heard is actually even in Indonesia, it was actually a Chinese-centric sport for basketball, but they changed for the past 25 years. And And then it hit me because actually here also we have some kind of development program for the non-Chinese. We have the non-Chinese tournament, also started 25 years ago, but it's nothing much. I mean, there are changes. But if you want to talk about the problem, the issue, I mean, come on, man.
You know,
20 years.
for me, I think the problem is when you talk about when you create a category as a non-Chinese, that's already a problem.
In a
You
way,
know.
I
Yes,
say
yes.
it sounds racist.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
It sounds
It's-
racist.
but
It's like
not
putting
a
people
response.
into different
It's like-
castes.
but
Yeah.
I know their mindset when they created this category, because I think initially MABA they wanted to attract more non-Chinese to play basketball, but because the level of but no offense, but because of the non-Chinese players, their
Not
level
decade.
their level is not as high as good as the Chinese players, because the Chinese player they started early.
Yeah.
So when those non-Chinese players, they cannot compete with the Chinese players, so MABA said, okay, let's create a non-Chinese category. So let the non-Chinese player play among themselves, and maybe they will fall in love with basketball. So the mindset, the intention is good.
Yes, correct.
The intention is good,
Yeah.
but over the years, and you have this category, and every time they only play among themselves. They cannot improve. Like
Yes.
we discussed just now,
Yes.
because the players, the talent is there. If you are a very good players, you have to compete with the good players. You cannot compete with, like, you are above the rest, then you won't improve anymore. So when you have this, like, a different category, the NC, then I think
The intention is good.
Yeah, the
We
intention is-
understand
yeah.
of that. You want to promote
Yep.
the sports among the non-Chinese, but then, like you said earlier, the Chinese still has the advantage because it started earlier. That's what I'm trying to point out. I mean, you have to focus on the grassroots level under 12. And then we've been talking about this for the past 10 years. I mean, I don't know how we can move forwards to implement this, to get this moving. But I think this is the main issue, and it's not just reflected in the non-Chinese, it's also reflected in the Malaysia basketball in a whole. I know how frustrated Jordan is when I read his article and everything about Malaysia basketball, the development and so on, and I agree with him. I mean, you have to start early.
Yeah, this we can see when it's interesting when you had that discussion with the Perbasi, the Basketball Association in Indonesia. Now we're seeing more and more non-Chinese and people from different places, even players all the way from PNG, Papua New Guinea, the Papua area.
Yeah.
So, like ours, can we find those talents like from Sabah and Sarawak, for example?
Yeah.
We do have a lot of
We
talents.
can, if you want to, if you have a proper plan. Like I remember, like maybe like you say, right, 10 years ago I interviewed Mislan about the non-Chinese development, the basketball development. Actually, if you have a plan to go into to touch the primary school,
That's the primary school.
that's where you find your talent.
Yeah.
You have a program, you go to the school, because in Malaysia we have so many schools, right?
Yeah.
And including those not the kebangsaan.
Yep.
So you can send some, like, maybe coaches.
I remember
Yes.
one of the usual
Yeah.
one of the usual excuses
Yes,
to say, "Oh, I don't have a basketball court in the
Yes.
school."
Yeah.
But that's the usual thing. Oh, sekolah kebangsaan they don't have.
They usually have two issues here when they want to implement at the primary school, because the Chinese school, right? The primary Chinese school, the SRJKC, usually the PIBG, they sponsor on the facilities and also the coaches. And these are the two things, coaches and also facilities for the sekolah kebangsaan, meaning that maybe the government need to give more support. I don't know. I mean, it can go either way. It's a chicken and egg issue, but the thing is what we want to see, and I think we never change our stance on this. You have to go to, it's not just actually the sekolah kebangsaan, but just at the primary school in general.
you know, you know, I think that's just an excuse. Like we don't have basketball court because when we talk about grassroots program, the youth development, you don't really need a full court.
Yeah.
You just need, because those kids under 12, maybe 7, 8, 9 years.
You just need a half court. It's a small space.
When you first develop, you just need to teach them how to dribble, how to pass.
Yeah. And just
Two-handed pass, one-handed pass, dribble,
Yeah.
how to run, because those age range, you have to master the motor skills, not the basketball strategy.
Yeah.
You don't need to play full court 5-on-5.
I remember I played basketball when I was still in primary school, and it was my uncle who taught me how to play basketball. And you know where I played? Car porch. Because he was a technical advisor and he was a referee, FIBA international referee.
Okay.
So you get free basketball at home. So you don't like. I agree with Jordan. I agree with Mislan. You know, you don't. It's just an excuse if you don't have a basketball court, because in a lot of places. Just look at Philippines. They don't have what they do. They can use a football court.
That's
You can
right.
use a sepak takraw court. So what's wrong with that? And the next thing is,
They play on the street.
Yeah.
They put up just like some basket
Yeah,
on the
the-
wall and they play.
the goal and the idea is actually to get these kids started and have interest early.
Yep.
And then when we have more kids that have this interest with basketball, so they can go and find proper places to go and train to go further and all. So the main goal is always has just to get all these kids to get interested with basketball, and then the way you do it is just maybe you can just get one basketball stand, a hoop, just a half court, just to get them interested.
You know, I now, because after I suggested to my friends, and then now I think they try to implement in KLBA. I think KLBA they try to implement this. They ask someone to donate a basketball stand, like those you play 3-on-3, those
Yes.
simple basketball stand to some kebangsaan school, primary school,
Yeah.
so that they can, and then maybe they will send some coaches to the school to teach the teachers or the players. So, but it needs to communicate with the school. But it's a good sign that someone is doing it. Like, you just need a few basketball stands. You don't have to have. full
yeah,
court.
I checked. You know, again, you see all these equipments I have, and I get it from Lazada. You know how much does the basketball stand cost? It costs less than 500. It's very cheap, and I think, you know, when it comes to even the basketball industry itself, it can be seen as a circular economy, where we have existing players, we have coaches, use them, and then what is that? Schools can also employ these coaches who are state and national players to be part of the training school, and then school can also think about using PIBG to fund this program, to even set up their own thing. I think it is a doable thing. When it comes to this, this feels like whether you have a political will to do it, whether you have the will to do it.
And another thing is the coaches. Do we have enough coaches?
Yeah.
How many coaches, grassroots coaches, do we have? Does MABA have a numbers, a data of this? I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but
Who do
maybe
you-
they have, maybe they don't. But you need to know how many coaches you have so that you can like distribute those coaches to different places to have like basketball camp or something like that.
But every year they have that level 1, level 2, level 3 MABA coaching programs.
Yep.
So I think you took part in that as
I
well.
took part. I actually am a level 1, the level 1
See, a
coach.
journalist now becoming a coach.
No, but the problem is, I talk about this in my article for many times. That we need to have standardized grassroots program. Like in school, standard 1, what do you learn? You have a syllabus. Like you need to actually in overseas, like in Australia, I think maybe Canada, those countries, and even Japan, they have their grassroots programs. They have like from 6 years old to maybe 9 years old. This is what you have to learn. This is what you have to master, and that's all. Unless you are like special talents, like maybe you already master all this, and then maybe you can learn extra. But this is what you need to learn in this age group. But we don't have that kind of stuff here.
That's the thing when I had an interview with Danny Kokase, I asked him what is the first thing that he did when he becomes the president, right? He said that he lay out the foundation, which is the coaches and the referee. So those two are actually the foundation that he set up. So he will worry about the tournaments later on. He needs to make sure that he got enough coaches, good quality coaches, and also referee for the competition. And how they got all those Papua players, right, to be have an interest or even play basketball is because they send a coach, not a coach, actually a couple of good coaches to Papua, to all like those Hulu, Hutan to actually coach and get kids actually to play basketball.
I'm sure maybe both of you have read this one story of a really tall family and a 15-year-old kid who is about 2 meters tall in Papua.
Where? In Papua, okay.
Again, back in Papua again. There are so many talents. It's now you talk to Denny Kosase. Now bring it back to Malaysia. Do we even have a direction for basketball in the country? What is the framework do we have in Malaysia? I think the answer is quite simple. We don't have.
No, we don't have.
I'm not gonna answer that. I'm gonna leave it to Jordan to answer that.
I think Jordan is gonna roast now.
I think we lack of direction, or I always had, like the other day I did a live chat with Tato Vira Tan Kang.
I heard he said about a new direction.
Yeah, they're gonna try something new. Okay. So, you see, every time a new management, they say they want to do this, but along the way, like they just change direction or something. Then here, then there, yeah.
Also, with the same team. Early on, when they come in, they want to do this and that, but in the middle of their term,
off track.
they change. They're off track. Okay.
So and then that's the thing. I asked, do MABA have a vision and mission? They said they have. They have a some.
The one.
Yeah,
at the wall.
they put on the wall, but I doubt any how many the members actually know about MABA's mission and vision.
It comes to a point where what I really wanted to ask, when every time we have new office bearers, when is the election again? Sometime this month, right?
Next week.
Next week.
Next
you see,
week, next Sunday.
next Sunday, they are going to have a new office bearers. Of course, we're going to expect Dato' Wiratan Kanyong will be the next president of MABA. Year in, year out, new office bearers, promise this, promise that. At the end of the day, right, people like us who loves basketball, who wants to see the best coming out from the Malaysian basketball, I really want to see in 6 months what they do, what is your pencapaian, what have you achieved? In 1 year, what have you achieved? There's no tracking at all to inform the public. How much money was spent, for example. Is there any, in your opinion, seeing Malaysian basketball, do you see this over this past decade? None.
If you ask me, I mean, because I'm not in the organization, so what I can comment is actually from the outside. From the outside looking in, I think because MABA has so many stakeholders, so it's very hard. I don't know whether for MABA or anyone, sometimes it's very hard for them to do any kind of program. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes like you have the usual Agong Cup, the usual SEA Game, the usual Lamuncap Cup, all those like set in place because it has already been there for 20, 50 years. But whenever like a new program, like if I can say the ICBL, it run once, and then we have the D-League, I mean 1 or 2. So those are the things that I want to see to be more consistent. If maybe like a 5 years thing. So if you ask me, I think those are the things that whenever that we want to do something, I think a lot of people are actually reluctant to change. So that's why if you ask me, I don't know, Jordan maybe can answer this much better than me. We are still stuck 20 years back.
That's the thing.
And we have when I would like to point out where Mislan has mentioned, we are 20 years behind, and I don't know.
No,
I think
it's not exactly like
But we're
not
actually
exactly
behind
20 years, but
Vietnam.
I think Jordan, because he already covering the sport for 20 years, maybe you can say that it's almost the same or just a slow progress for the past 20 years.
I think Jordan is really heated up to
You
comment
know,
about this.
you-
But we
you know,
we comparing Singapore, Vietnam, and us.
Yeah.
We are lagging behind them already.
The thing is, like, just now you talk about plan, like 5 years plan or 10 years plan. The answer is we don't have. Because you know why? Our focus is always on SEA Games. And SEA Games is
2 years.
every 2 years.
2 years.
So it's like 2 years. We focus. We lost this.
short,
We lost this time. We want to win it. We want to win it next time, and then that is 2 years.
So
Every time is 2 years only. 2 years is not even a short-term goals, you know.
So the KPI is always has been the SEA Games. It's not
Yeah,
all the.
because it's very important to the government.
Okay.
So it's very important to the
Yeah,
association.
money again.
Okay.
Money, right?
Yeah.
And then, talking about SEA Games and SEA Games again. See what happened when women's team actually produced more results than the men's team. Of course, we can go deeper into that, where women's team have been winning gold medal for the past 11 years. 11 times, sorry, for the past in the SEA Games. But men, I think it was last 20, 30 years ago, right?
1989,
It's
the last one.
31 years
The
ago.
only one.
The only one.
No,
Is it-
actually
no, second?
the second one. I
The
think.
second one. So
Yeah.
they had another
They have 1970 something.
Before
Actually,
they
Coach
call it
Go,
SEA Games.
Coach Go, won.
Oh, okay.
That was so many years ago. But then, I think there's no point harping with our past winning.
We-
But
we-
we don't even have a proper foundation to begin with. Like what you say, in schools, in colleges. One of the things where a lot of listeners out there may not know that most of our players who are in the national junior team right after 18 years old, when they go to university, there's a huge dropout. Dropout in the sense where they got dropped out from the program, the training itself. There's no continuity.
Yep.
So imagine they were at the tip form in a junior team. By the time when they reached 22, they became fat. I mean, literally fat means it's not normal. It was supposed to be at the optimum level.
Yeah.
But why does this happen, Jordan?
Because we don't have a platform
Yeah.
for the players after they become after they drop out from the under 18 program. So after they graduate from high school, maybe they go to work, maybe they go to college, but University League is up and coming. I know there are some University League, but maybe the quality is not there.
Yes.
So it's hard for the players to develop. And then the players they don't have when you don't have a professional league or even a proper league, we are talking about a proper league. We don't have that, or maybe not consistent enough.
Yes.
Sometimes you have, sometimes you don't
Yeah.
have. So 1 year you have, the next year you don't have, and then that the players they don't see it as a profession. They won't tell you that I want to be a professional basketball player.
Same goes with parents. Parents will tell, can you earn money becoming a basketball player again?
That's the thing about our Asian parents, the mentality, whether you can, take care of yourself, being a professional basketball player or even like a national basketball player, how good or how well you can take care of yourself. So that's another issue I think to be discussed about. But like Jordan said, I think if we want to see, honestly, I prefer to see some of the positive things that Maba did. But if you want to think about the problem, the issue is the inconsistency. I mean, you have this tournament in 1 year. We have the under 20 for only couple of years, and then no more. So those are the things that we want to see. Maybe the issue also because of the term. Like you mentioned earlier, Norman, where Maba, every term they change different team, different management, so there's no continuity. And I think we talk about this 10 years. Jordan probably see this.
This really sound like politics also.
This is one of the problems I want to point out is that you see the Maba's management term is like 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. So when you ask the leader about a long-term program, he will tell you, I only have to do it for 4 years. So how can I tell you 10 years? Maybe after 4 years, I'm no longer the leader of the association, so I cannot tell you what a long-term plan like 10 years. But the problem is, you need the foundation.
Yeah.
You need a plan, like maybe 10 years, at least 10 years to 20 years.
Yes.
And then maybe you are gone after 4 years. But if the foundation is good, the next management, they can still continue with the plan.
You know, we've seen really good plans from foundation development and also tournaments. Things has really picked up even in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, where they have high school tournaments to college and really big college tournaments, very similar to NCAA in the US. Singapore is slowly building up. It's a small country. Vietnam is moving really fast. What can Malaysia do? Can they do or not?
I think it's a very tough question because we talk about all the issues, which is continuity and plan. And I think Malaysia, we have so many stakeholders, we have so many different school of thought. And then I think some of them, they can't see things on the same page. And when people cannot see things on the same page, sometimes it is okay agree to disagree, but I think because we are Asian, we don't have that kind of mentality. If like say we have a different opinion, it's like, okay, you do your thing, I will do my thing. So we don't have that future plan, future goal, or future like on the same page. And then most of it, you said it yourself, Jordan, is the short-term goal to win the SEA Games. So I think any management, any MABA, when they goes to the office, their focus is only on the SEA Games. And then how do you win a SEA Game if you like only have 2 years to do it? I mean, I thought that you have to go plan for it earlier on your youth, on your grassroots. Only then you can focus at the national level. I mean, 2 years to plan.
Well, how can you turn a players like in 2 years and you cannot make him taller? Okay, obviously
Cut him up and stretch his leg,
the
is it?
talent is there. In 2 years, how can you improve him like to super players in 2 years time? I don't know, when you don't even have a proper leg.
And I remember just now you were mentioning also on professionalism. We've seen how the only professional team that we have in Malaysia is just West Sports KL Dragons, right? And
we do have NS Matrix.
yep, but when it comes to really a professional team that plays in
international
league,
you know, actually, I really don't know how to categorize them. You know, like
That makes sense.
right? You know, they pay so much money.
What about Faco Camp? How do you-
game is just
Semi-pro?
like corporate team.
Corporate team? Okay.
there's also Night
What
Fury.
about NS Matrix there? NS Matrix.
Maybe I think corporate teams they pay the players really well. They sign contract like professional players.
Give them jobs.
But I'm not sure like their status. What is their status actually? They're a corporate team or a professional team or.
Yeah, because they do have a team. I think I'm not sure whether they still have a team in football. They have a team NS Matrix also in the Malaysia Premier League, the football league. Not sure whether they are still there. I don't think it's no longer. Now they changed to basketball. But I cannot. My info, my site, I mean, on the NS Matrix team is quite limited compared to the KL Dragons because I've been following them for the past 10 years. And also there's, you know, you heard a lot of stories behind the closed doors about what's going on, about the players' contracts, their benefits. So those kind of things, if you ask me, because I'm not a professional basketball player, so I cannot tell what they should do, those kind of things. And maybe Jordan has more experience covering all the other sports, all basketball, the other basketball leagues in not only in Southeast Asia but also around Asia, Jordan.
Because, you know, if you want to talk about professional team, there are a lot to consider. Like, for me, they just have a team, very good players. Most of the good players in the country, they have. Then they play 1 or 2 tournaments a year, and that's it. Do they have a marketing team? I don't think so. They are not active on social media.
And then
So-
remember when we go to, I think was it Kaohsiung?
Uh.
Was it Kaohsiung or Taichung? When we saw Formosa Dreamers and look at their marketing. They get sponsored by Nike, you know, for a new team.
Even Dragons, they are not truly a professional team in the sense that they are the
Full-time
the
basketball
operation,
professional team. Full-time basketball.
the operation itself is not you if you compare to those really
Others,
professional
yes.
really professional team. We are still not there yet, so it's hard to tell like, whether.
I was hoping though that with the introduction of the KL Dragons and the ABL, we will have something close like that, resemble of that. But I don't know. It's another question to be asked. How basketball, the future? I know this is what we talk about. The future of basketball in Malaysia. I have a very high hope, but because so many stakeholders and I think it's hard for some people, some stakeholders, just to change.
Yeah.
They like to be at the comfortable level. Like I mentioned earlier, you have the SEA Games, you have the Agong Cup, you have all those the youth tournaments. All those tournaments has been there for 25, 15, 20, 50 years. So that is where the comfortable level at.
So Mislan, on a final note, before we close this, everyone, I think we are actually quite disappointed with what's going on too, right? I think the disappointment for I think Jordan for the last 20
Jordan,
years.
I know.
Jordan's like, the last 20 years. But we look at how to summarize things up. We'll start with you, Mislan. Looking forward, what do you hope for, and what would you expect in our basketball industry in Malaysia?
I hope the Malaysia basketball stakeholder not afraid to change. That's the first things. I mean, I know Jordan has been like put out articles, whether it's called complaint or criticism or also suggestion, and I hope that the Malaysia basketball stakeholder, not only people at MABA, but also the state association are actually open to ideas, open to changes, because actually there are positive changes. Because since I'm a broadcaster, I can tell you we have more. Actually, we cover a lot more basketball games on TV. Now also we have the Chinese Basketball Association. We never have CBAs actually showed on our national TV. So that's actually can gain into. Of course, the level is not the same if compared to NBA. And even I think if I can say ABS probably can get more attention. It's probably more exciting. But it is something. It is something. So that's what we want to see. If you still want to stay at your level, that's why I highlighted that we are stuck 20 years behind. Why 20 years behind? Not only because Jordan covered the scene for the past 20 years, it's also because I think that's when we lose the sponsorship from the Petronas. Is that somewhere around that, or a few years? I think somewhere around that time.
The last term of the sponsorship was 2015.
2015?
Yeah, because it started in 1995.
Okay.
The sponsorship that was 20 years sponsorship.
It's a 20 years sponsorship.
Yep.
Okay.
But in the last few years, the last few years of the contract, they already cut down the money.
So that's why we no longer see Petronas brand associated with Malaysia basketball anymore. But what I can say is actually for Malaysia basketball scene, they can associate the Petronas brand with them. That's how actually the Petronas branding able to get a positive from the sponsorship, the 20 years sponsorship. But I'm not sure whether MABA people or those Malaysia basketball stakeholders realize this or not. Because whenever you go to the airport, Malaysia basketball teams always wear that Petronas sponsorship. We no longer wear that anymore. But if you go look at it, even if my friends, I can say from our the non-Chinese community, whenever we look at that Petronas t-shirt, we know, oh, you actually play at the national level for Malaysia basketball. So that's something to be associated with the brand.
I remember because at the time when I was still in university, I'm also a sports writer during my university days, writing my own. So I covered the national junior at that time, So they were wearing, when you go to FIBA Asia, they were wearing Petronas as national players. I remember I remember what you mentioned earlier. Now it gives me a throwback. Whenever you see anyone going to the airport wearing the Petronas Team Malaysia, there's like immediately you will know that they are national players, like national players. So, with Mislan's thoughts, and then what about you, Jordan? Looking forward.
Looking forward, I hope Maba. I sounds like broken record.
we all do.
I hope we have a proper plan, grassroots planning. That we have proper plan for the future. Maybe a mid-term, long-term plan. A clear direction for all the stakeholders. Everybody, same page. Even if you don't agree with some decision, but you still support,
or if you're not support, you don't against it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And also close collaboration with a lot of sports journalists out there who wants to see this doing well.
Sorry, Jordan, I interrupt you. Continue, Jordan.
Yeah, continue, Jordan.
And for me, I think in Malaysia, I do believe we have basketball market. I do believe. You see, a lot of those bosses, they are willing to invest money in players. You see, we have Red Baron, we have Night Fury, we have like NS, we have Dragons. In East Malaysia, we have the Lord Tiger and all those teams. Those bosses, they are willing to invest. But the problem is, you don't have a business model for them to gain some benefit, to make money.
A sort of cooperation with corporate companies. It's not CSR, but this is a public-private partnership. This is PPP model. So it's what we're also seeing in the US and so many other countries. It's proven successful.
So I mean, if you don't have that kind of business model, it is very difficult to run a long term, because those teams initially they will go away, because every year I invest like maybe tens of thousands and 100,000, more than 100,000, or maybe millions into basketball, and I don't gain anything except for maybe championship. So that maybe in the end the bosses, they will go away.
No value of return, no return of investment, those kind of things.
Because at the end, corporate companies really want to see ROIs, right?
Yeah, maybe there is, but they probably can't see it.
Or like last time I interviewed Blackie Chen from Taiwan, one of the former owners of Formosa Dreamers. He said, you have to believe there's market first. You have to believe there's market first.
So when you believe, you create the market.
Yeah, and you cannot say, oh, there's no market, I wait. You cannot wait for the market to exist. You have to create one.
Yes, I agree.
Imagine the market and then you build the market.
Yeah,
itself.
you believe there's market, and then you build it, or you try to create it, and then you come up with a plan to create the market. How? I don't know, because I'm not the expert. I'm not a businessman, an investment, but there should be something. I mean, there are a lot of successful example around the world. We can always like copy, or maybe just as reference, ask people how do you do it. Maybe we pay a visit to Japan Basketball Association. I don't know. Maybe other countries, European country, we just visit them and ask, how do you guys do it?
Well, maybe we don't have to go that far. We just can go to either Thailand or Indonesia, and maybe even Singapore, because they have something going on there, right?
Everyone has something good to learn from. We can learn from those countries.
Can I add someone? Sure. I think that's the thing about Malaysia basketball. I think back then we were among the powerhouse in Southeast Asia, so actually people come to us. But now I think we probably have too much pride to go to other places to go and learn from them. So I think that's another issue to be talked about. I don't know.
You know, this I reflect on this. This is like one of the Malay peribahasa. Malay say, ikut resmi padi, semakin berisi, semakin kita tunduk. So although we have been at the pinnacle of the pride that we faced, that we had, but now we are already behind others. But it's also good to learn from our neighbors who have been doing well, because these are success stories. And that is the, that really sums up what we've discussed today. And I would like to thank both of you. And it has been a very long journey for our Malaysian basketball over the past 5 decades, with many ups and downs along the way. So thank you so much to my two gurus, Jordan Yap and Mislan, for sharing your insights and analysis on this show. And this is the debut episode of the new series on Bicara Minggu Ini on Sukan and Sports. You're listening to Bicara Minggu Ini, uncovering current affairs and politics. And today, we have sports. And you can listen to the stories and interviews on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts on iTunes. For more updates and stories, if you have any suggestions, you can tweet to me at I'mNonggo. Thank you and have a pleasant week ahead.